Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. If you are new to these sessions, go ahead and say hi in the chat. Or if you're not new in these sessions, go ahead and say hi in the chat. Tell us your name and your hometown. We have a special guest today. I'll be introducing her in a minute. And we do have some updates, just general updates about our application. Make sure to get those applications in as soon as possible if you haven't already done so. And then those of you that are on the wait list, we are contacting and booking people daily. So please keep an eye on your communications. And then if you, again, say hi, welcome in the chat, say hi, say your hometown, tell us that you're here so we can give you a shout out. Alrighty. And we're going to go ahead and get started today with today's live session, which is Understanding Your Student Bill. We have Miss Cassandra Salinas, the manager of student accounts, here with us today, and she is going to give us some insights on understanding your student bill. We're also going to be able to take some questions in the chat at the end of the session in the case that we aren't able to answer your questions in the presentation. And then we also have some upcoming sessions, more about financial aid and more about additional fees in the next two sessions. So this one is specifically just about understanding your student bill. So welcome, Ms. Cassandra.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here.
Awesome. If you want to get started, you go for it.
Hi, everyone. So, yes, I am the manager of student accounting. I work specifically with the student bill. So, our team works to make sure that your tuition and mandatory fees are accurate, are live on assist, and that you're understanding it. And we're always here to help you if you have questions. And our contact info will be at the end of the presentation. So, this is going to be a very short and brief presentation on how to read your bill in Assist and TouchNet. And then we'll go through that and then take some questions. So, next slide. Okay, so this is how you can access your student bill. So here's what Assist looks like. I just wanted to kind of make it brief and easy to read. So the first thing you're going to do is log into your Assist profile. This should be the first page you see, number one. So you're going to select from here the My Finance tab. Once you've selected My Finance, you'll come here to number two, and then you're going to select your online student bill. From here, it's going to show you which terms you want. So you can actually look at your bill for prior terms if you need it for any reason, such as your employer's asking for it because they're going to give you tuition assistance, or you're not sure if maybe you think your tuition is wrong. You can look at what it was the last time, or you can select your current term when it's available. So this is what it looks like in Assist, and we'll just kind of go through this. This is actually a screen that is also shared with students when your bill goes live. So if you guys are already enrolled in the fall term, you would have gotten an email notification to your UTRGV email saying your bill is available as well as the payment due date. And then this would be something that you would get as an attachment. And so this helps guide students because we know that the Assist view is it's a lot of information to intake at once. So we've also created this key here to kind of guide you through all the sections of your bill. And so I'll just kind of go through them now. So you'll see this is where the Pay Now button is. So when you select this, you've already reviewed your bill and you're comfortable with what it says. You feel confident that your class schedule is correct. You can see that here as well. Your hours are good. Here you would see any pending financial aid. And then down here is going to be where you have your charges and payments. And then here is going to be any balances you owe. So just going back around, up here you're going to have your statement date, student name, ID number, email, the term that you've selected. So this is also very important to make sure that you're looking at the bill for the term that you've selected because it'll look very similar for each term. And then here, number 3 is going to be your balance for the term that you've selected. So this is also very important because right down here, you also see total amount due. So it's very possible that you will see 2 different amounts here. And this is a very common question. So the balance here, number 3, is going to be the balance, any balance due from the term that you selected. Now the total amount due is going to be any balance you owe over all terms. So let's say you've selected upcoming fall or spring and you see 0 here, but you're like, hey, why do I have something here in total amount due? I thought I owed 0. Well, you're going to have to go back and look at your other terms because it's possible that there's an amount due in those other terms. So that's what the difference is here between the balance and the total amount due. Then down here you have your payment reminder. This will always tell you the due date for the term that you've selected. So in this example, we're using the prior term spring. So this was the due date for spring. If you're looking at fall, it should show you the fall due date there. Here you'll have your class schedule. You should always pay attention to your total registered hours. And the reason you want to really pay attention to your total registered hours is because it's going to drive the amount of tuition you're charged. Then here, number 7, you'll have any pending financial aid. So when it's no longer pending, it'll appear here in your current term payments. So you can see in this example, this student, he got the tuition advantage and the direct loan, and it has already been applied. So that's why it's in current term payments. Now, early in the term, before financial aid is applied, it's considered pending. So the general rule is financial aid cannot be applied to current term payments until 10 days prior to the first class date. So if you have your fall bill now and you're not sure why you don't see your financial aid applied, or it's just under pending and you're not sure, it's just because we haven't hit that mark yet of 10 days prior to the first class date. So just be patient on that one. But yeah, any pending will be under here. And then you'll have your current term charges, which will show you your tuition amounts and your mandatory fees. So we also get quite a few questions about what is considered a mandatory fee. So it's going to be anything listed here, which is the recreation fee, student service fee, student union fee, university services fee, medical services fee, intercollegiate athletic fee. So this group is considered mandatory fees. And what that means is that all students must pay those fees. So that's also a common question we get is, well, I'm not going to plan to use the rec, or I'm not planning to be on campus, so I don't feel like I should pay those fees. So we do understand that concern, but that is why they're considered mandatory. So it's not an option for students to opt out of those. So we always do encourage students to use those because they will still have to be paying for them. And then another good thing to see here is under charges, you also see a line item labeled direct deposit, and it's under charges. And you can see it's quite a bit of money. And so the important thing to identify with any direct deposit disbursements is this isn't actually considered a charge. We know it's under charges, but this is actually any refunds given to the student. And the reason that it has to be under charges is usually for accounting purposes and to balance out your account. So what that means is this particular student, for example, they got the tuition advantage and a federal loan. And so this amount exceeded the amount that they owed for tuition and mandatory fees. And so any remaining amounts were given to the student as a student refund. And again, it's placed under the charges column just to balance it out. But it's important for students to know that's not a charge. It's not extra money that we're taking from you. It's actually money that you should have received as a student refund. And here on this side, we have a little bit more useful information, how to make payments, who to contact if you need some help. And so this will always be available to you. And then here I added a quick tip. The student bill will always be available to students 1 month prior to payment due date as assigned on the academic calendar. So it's going to change on a term by term basis, but it's always going to be 1 month or around 30 days, whichever whenever the next Monday lies, that's when we publish it. And you will receive an email when it's available in Assist for you to view. I know that students get a little anxious. They want to see their bill right away so they can financially plan. And we do our best to get it out as soon as we can, but it's always going to be within that 1 month prior to payment due date. So if you're not sure, or if you need your bill for any reason, just go ahead and check the academic calendar, look for the payment due date, and then go 1 month before, and that's when your bill should be available for a term. All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide. So just to jump back really quickly, when you select this Pay Now button, this is where it's going to take you. It's going to take you to TouchNet. So TouchNet is our payment system in UTRGV. This is where you will make your actual payments. So for this meeting, we're going to go over the bill. If you have any questions on how to make a payment or when to make a payment, you can contact the bursar's office, and we can give that in the chat if needed. But I just wanted to do a quick run through of what your TouchNet bill will look like, because it's going to look a little different than your Assist bill. So again, you're going to select the term, and in this example, we're using the previous spring, and this is what it'll look like. So it's a little bit different, but you're going to see a lot of the same information. So I did go ahead and highlight certain sections that we can look at together. So here you'll have your tuition and mandatory fees, which of course is going to include any tuition, and the mandatory fees, which are usually university services, intercollegiate, student service, lab fees, things like that. And then you have non-mandatory fees, which you'll also see under charges, but these could include your dorm fees, any credit card convenience fees, any maybe like library charges, parking fees, things like that that are not considered academic or mandatory fees. But it's very important to pay attention to those, as well as the dates here, because they will also be due at the same time as tuition. So that's another thing to consider. Unless you're participating in an installment plan where you have set due dates, all tuition, mandatory and non-mandatory fees are due by the due date as assigned on the academic calendar. Here we can also see some payments listed under credits or anticipated credits. In the student example, we had some financial aid and some out-of-pocket payments. So these will all be listed in the same category as credits or payments. So these will reduce the balance of the charges and then give you your total term balance at the end. So what's important to note is that it does say anticipated credits up here. So that's very similar to pending financial aid. So if you have anything pending or upcoming or authorized aid coming in, it will consider it to reduce your balance. So it's possible that you could have a zero term balance even if you haven't made any payments because you have upcoming aid. So that's another thing to consider. You'll always want to check out your term balance at the end and make sure that it's zero, or that you're making plans to pay any remaining balances. So another example could be that your anticipated credits pending financial aid is only going to cover part of your bill, and you'll have to financially plan to pay the remaining amount. So you'll always want to make sure that you're paying attention to the final balance and that you're making arrangements to pay, because that's what you will most likely have to pay out of pocket. So that kind of wraps up this screen. And then we just have our contact information here, what we can help with. You can always reach us at email student_billing@utrgv.edu, and we can help you with any questions regarding your online student bill, any balance questions, understanding your tuition and mandatory fees, where are they coming from, what's that money used for, things like that. And then also understanding your refunds for student refunds. So if you're going to get a refund, if you're expected to, if you have any existing credits. So our team can definitely help with that. And a lot of it does have to do with financial aid. So from time to time, we might need to refer you to a department that specializes in those particular questions, but we'll definitely do our best to help guide you in navigating into understanding your bill and what you need to do next. So that wraps it up for me.
It does. We do have a few questions just that we can kind of help clarify. Thank you so much for that. If we can go back to the screen with the charges, and I saw that there was a Casa board sales. No. Okay, one more.
So let's touch that one.
There you go.
Okay.
So in the green there, it has a code, right? So it says CB dash board, CB dash room. So those would be, that's our code for Casa Bella, right? There's also codes per hall. So if for housing, if you by some chance are in the wrong, or if it's posted in the wrong room, let's just say you're at Unity and it's posting for Heritage or Troxel, you can also contact us at home@utrgv.edu, and we can kind of look into it and make sure that you're um, getting charged the right building, right? Because all fees are different. So that's something to consider. And then a question is for an installment plan. How do students request that for tuition and fees? And then I'll also answer for how to request that for housing.
Yes, so to request the installment plan, you would go to, and I don't have a screen for it, but it's very similar to these. So you would go again to the My Finance tab. When you select your online student bill and you select the term at the, it will lead you here, but when you go to just the online student bill, it should have an option at the bottom that says request installment plan.
Awesome. Okay. And for housing, so just for everybody's information, when you do request an installment plan for tuition and mandatory fees, it is only for tuition and mandatory fees through this area. To get an installment plan for your housing fees, you would make sure one that you've already selected it on your application, but in the case that you haven't selected it on your application, you would have to request that at home@utrgv.edu. You would send in your student ID number and your name and where you're living, and we can help assist you with making sure that you are adjusted to an installment plan. The other question is, will I get a disbursement if I do have pending charges in the future?
Yes, that's a great question. So, most likely, yes, you will get a refund. So, the reason for that is because we usually run refunds by the date and the charges and payments you have on that date. So, if you have future charges, like future dorm charges or future payments, it doesn't calculate into that disbursement amount and it is released to the student. And that really has a lot to do with the fact that students may need their money now for books, um, living expenses, transportation, food. So we don't want to hold the students' money if they plan to pay another way, like if they have a job, if they're work study, if they're planning to make additional funds to pay their future charges. So we do give the money, we do give disbursements as of the date. If it doesn't include future charges, you will be getting a refund. So it's really important to be aware of your future charges so that you are able to financially arrange that so that you know that if you need to save that money to put it towards your future dorm charges, that you're doing that and you're not thinking that everything's already paid for. So yes, that's a good question. You may get a refund even though you have future charges.
Yes, and so on our end, that is a big reason why we are very encouraging to make sure that you have a pay in full option if you get any type of financial aid or assistance, so that way it can cover what it needs to cover. If by some chance it doesn't cover the entire balance, you can come back to us and let us know, hey, I now need an installment plan for the rest of the charges, and we can definitely accommodate that. But make sure that you are on pay in full if you have any type of financial aid or scholarships, so that way you are not receiving money that if you think that you still don't have a balance, but making sure that you are on the right thing. And if you're not and you do get into disbursement, like she said, make sure that you are planning financially to pay your future terms. Another question is, what will happen if I do miss a payment deadline, whether it's the pay in full at the beginning or installment plan deadline?
So most likely you may receive late payment fees. So if you make any payments, and it's a good point to make, if you make any payments, you're not able to make payments to specific charges on a bill. So if we take this bill, for example, if you're saying, oh, well, I paid $1,000 here and I wanted it to go to my dorm fees here, but I didn't pay all of my tuition and mandatory fees yet, this payment will go straight to your tuition and mandatory fees, so you're not dropped from your courses, and this will remain outstanding. So it's very important to know that when you make payments, your tuition and mandatory fees are prioritized. And so that could mean that you get late payment fees either for tuition or your dorms. So it's very important to note that you need to make sure that you are paid in full for your tuition first, and then any payments thereafter are made to your dorm fees. And yes, you could get late payment fees if it's late for each individual one. So there's a tuition late payment fee. I believe there's also a housing late payment fee. And then there's also an installment plan late payment fee if those are late as well. So yeah, that's pretty much how it works with the payment. So just make sure that your tuition and mandatory fees are paid. And then after that, any money will go to consider your dorm fees. But if they're not paid, as long as your tuition and mandatory fees are paid for a term, you won't be dropped. But another thing that's important to mention is if you have any outstanding balance, including mandatory tuition, non-mandatory, non-academic, if it's left over at the end of a term and you have not paid it, it's possible that it will go to a collection agency. So that's why it's also very important to pay those. And those usually get sent right when a term ends. So you don't have a lot of time to make sure that it's paid. So just make sure that all of the dues are paid within the term, or at least by the end of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think another question that came in after that is, are there any charges for splitting my tuition payments up into installments?
For tuition installment plans, there is a $30 service fee. And then there's, I believe, if any of the installment payments are late, it gets $30 as well. So what's also important to know regarding late payments, if you're in a tuition installment plan, so it's, to backtrack, there's tuition installment plans and there's housing installment plans, and those are two different things. So if you're enrolled in both, you need to keep track of both. But regarding tuition installment plans, there is a $30 service fee to sign up. And then if you're late on any of your payments, there's $30 late payment fees per late payment fee. So let's say it divides your tuition into 4 payments and you're late 2 of those times, and that's $30 each late.
Yes. Okay. And then, just like you mentioned, there's two different types of installment plan enrollment. So you can enroll in one for your tuition and fees, and then also enroll in one for housing. And when you enroll in one for housing, there's a $10 charge per installment. So it's a $40 installment service fee for housing. It's so you can choose one or the other. Like if you want to pay in full for tuition and you want to pay an installment for housing, that is possible, but it would also incur a separate charge. So that's why we encourage you to keep paying full until all of your tuition and fees and housing fees are paid up. And then if you have any balances left over, then evaluate if you would need an installment plan for your needs, right? One more question, and I think we are good. It is how. Oh, hold on one second. How can I? I'm trying to reword it because it's a little bit wordy. If I'm not seeing the correct charges, how can I adjust those, or where can I go to adjust those if it's tuition and fees, and then I'll go ahead and answer for housing.
Yeah, sure. So our team works very diligently on a daily basis to make sure that your tuition and mandatory fees are correct. But that's not to say that errors can't happen or that they never do. So absolutely, if you feel that your bill is wrong, you can always reach us by email and we'll evaluate it for you. And again, our email is student_billing@utrgv.edu. Now, the most common changes that we see is when students add drop courses. And so it's very important to know that when you add or drop a course, it can take up to 48 hours for your bill to change because it's done in the system. So that's one of our common questions we get is, I dropped a course, but my bill didn't change or go down, and I thought it would. And sometimes it will, and sometimes it won't, depending on your particular student profile. So if you expect your bill to go down and it didn't, just please allow the 48-hour time frame. And if you still don't see it change, reach out to our team and we'll look at it. Another common question we have is, and this is actually a good example, is program fees or miscellaneous fees that the student didn't expect to see. So there's a lot of those lab fees, differential tuition, and that's all dependent on the courses you select and your program or concentration or major. And so here you can actually see this student example had a teacher certificate program fee, which is based on your program. So if you're trying to get into the teacher certification program, you have to pay this fee. But let's say you're not in the teacher certification program and you're like, well, why do I have this? So those are the types of questions you would reach out to our team for. We would evaluate, we would see why was that added to your bill? Because at this point, it's all automated. So the system should be able to pick up what is your major in the system and assign it to you or not assign it to you. So that's why there's not usually issues, but of course, nothing perfect. So you would need to just reach out to us. But as I mentioned before as well, a lot of these fees are considered mandatory and cannot be removed. So like the student service fee, intercollegiate athletic fee, we get that one also. I'm not in athletics. Why am I paying that? It's a mandatory fee. It's for the general operation of the athletics team, and all students must pay it, along with the university service fee, the rec fee, student union fee, medical service fee. Those are all mandatory. If you're not sure, you can go to the utrgv.edu webpage. In the search bar, you can just type tuition and mandatory fees, and it'll give you a list of tuition amounts as well as fees that are considered mandatory. And those cannot be taken off, even if you choose not to use them. Like if you don't go to the rec, if you don't use your medical service fee, if you're not on campus, if you're 100% online, you still need to pay those. So we just encourage students to use those amenities because you need to pay them one way or another. But yeah, if you see anything unusual, a lab fee, and you're like, I'm not even in that class, or I'm not in the teacher cert, or I know there's also a nursing assessment fee. So you would just reach out to our team. We would tell you why that fee's there, who you can contact to review the fee for you, or if we can do it, we'll absolutely do that for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Same with the fees for housing. So if there's anything that's a discrepancy or if anything is wrong, you can definitely contact us at home@utrgv.edu. We can review and see what those changes are. And then again, she said 48 hours. Ours is not automated, so it can take up into one business week. So like within 5 business days to be able to make sure that those are updated. However, in the case that it's an emergency or something needs to happen, you can always contact us and we will do our best to make those changes as soon as possible. So thank you so much, Cassandra, for joining us. We may have you again in a future session in the case that we need to get some more clarification, but I think that this was a really great session. Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. Happy to be here.
Yes, of course. Okay, I'm going to give some quick updates for our live session. So this was our first session about paying for your vaquero home at utrgv.edu. And so we are really excited to be having more sessions. Our next session is about financial aid and financial assistance. That's this upcoming next Tuesday for Thursday. So next Tuesday. And then the following Thursday will be any additional fees. So it talks about all the additional fees that has housing. So if you lose your key, any fines, any additional charges that might come up on your student bill, we're going to have a whole session to discuss that. So we will be talking more about some fees and what they would look like on your bill. So please make sure to scan this QR code any upcoming and future sessions. And then we do have our welcome home weekend. I'm not going to go into full detail. If you have any questions, they're on our other videos. But please make sure to join us for our welcome home weekend. We are so excited for you to join us and live with us on campus for the year. So thank you so much. And we're going to go ahead